Hello, friends. I'm the Reverend Terry Peterson, minister of St. John's in Guruk. Today is Friday, the 19th of March. It is the 27th day in the season of Lent. So it's time for our 27th object, which is the phone. So whether your phone looks like this, or maybe you still have one of those phones that has those curly cords that connects the handset to the part with the buttons or with a rotary dial, and then it's all plugged into the wall. However your phone looks, that's our object for today. Many of us are spending more time than ever on the phone because we aren't allowed to see each other in person. And some people love the telephone and other people absolutely hate talking on the phone. But most of us will have a phone, or we have access to a phone. So I think it's interesting to note that it was just this week, the 10th of March, that we passed the anniversary of the first ever telephone call. It was the 10th of March, 1876, when Alexander Graham Bell telephoned his assistant Watson in the other room and said, "Watson, come here, I need you." And I don't think that Alexander Graham Bell or Watson could ever have imagined something like this, where not only can I speak to people who are elsewhere in the town or even across the ocean elsewhere in the world, but I can also send them messages by text. I can also find out the news on the internet. I can also even video chat, not just an audio call, but an actual video chat with people anywhere in the world. Alexander Graham Bell's mind would be like, I cannot believe all the things that this invention is unleashing on the world. But what a beautiful thing to have created, a way for people to communicate and keep in touch with each other no matter where they are. And I think that's really important for us to do, to keep in touch with each other. It matters that we phone people we haven't seen in a while, or that we're thinking about, to phone them and say, "I was thinking about you, how are things going?" Especially when we can't see each other and so many people are really feeling isolated. The telephone is a beautiful thing that allows us to build up community even when we have to stay apart. So use your phone, call somebody, just say hi, see how things are going, and let them know that you're thinking about them, because I think that matters. The other aspect of the phone, of course, is we talk about how you call someone on the phone. So I thought it would be fun to read about another story of someone being called and then having to run through the house to try to figure out what was going on. So this is from the first book of Samuel, chapter 3. The boy Samuel was ministering to the Lord under Eli. The word of the Lord was rare in those days. Visions were not widespread. At that time, Eli, whose eyesight had begun to grow dim so he could not see, was lying down in his room. The lamp of God had not yet gone out, and Samuel was lying down in the temple of the Lord, where the ark of God was. Then the Lord called, "Samuel, Samuel," and he said, "Here I am." And he ran to Eli and said, "Here I am, for you called me." But he said, "I did not call, lie down again." So he went and lay down. Now this happens a couple of times, right? Samuel hears the voice calling him, and he assumes it's Eli calling from the other room, and so he runs through the temple, and he says, "Here I am, you called me." Can you imagine if they'd had texting or even a regular telephone, if Eli could have been like, "Ring, ring, Samuel, I need you," then it might be more obvious that the voice calling was not in fact Eli. Because if Eli could have just phoned, then you would know it was God calling if the voice came from somewhere else. But that story tells us that the voice of God that came to Samuel was like a voice, right? He could mistake that voice for the voice of a person in the other room. So it wasn't just like he was hearing voices in his head. He heard a voice calling him just like you can hear down the line when you call someone on the phone. So I think that's pretty incredible, actually. Sorry about the light there. The sun has moved. I love that story and how it gives us this sense of God calling and Samuel not knowing who it is exactly. And even Eli, whose job it is to know what God wants and what God is doing, he doesn't know either. So repeatedly, Samuel hears the voice and he runs through the temple. Here I am, for you called me. He got a workout that night when a telephone would have been so much quicker. But finally, when Eli realized what was happening, he explained to Samuel how to answer. Just like all of us at some point were taught how to answer the phone, Samuel had to be taught how to answer when God called. So I wonder who it is that taught you how to answer the phone. And I wonder also who it is that taught you how to answer when God calls. So that's actually my thought for today. Who is that person that taught you how to answer? And then as you have grown older, have you continued to answer the same way? Do you always answer the phone using the same language and the same inflection? Or do you say something different now when you pick up the phone than you did when you were young? And is that also true for when God calls? Do you still answer God the same way as when God called when you were young? Or are you answering in a different way now? If God were to call today, call you by name, Terry, Terry, would you run through the house looking for the voice? Or would you know it's God calling? What Eli teaches Samuel to say is, "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening," which I think is a pretty good answer for any of us. It would be a weird thing to say on the phone, "Speak, for your servant is listening." But hopefully when we answer the phone, we are listening to whoever is speaking to us. And when God calls, we can say, "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening." And then actually listen to whatever God has to say. So that's what I've got for today, object number 27, the telephone. I will see you again tomorrow for object 28. Until then, peace be with you.